This conference finals game 3 betting picks edition of the NBA Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. You can win up to 100 times your entry with Underdog Fantasy Pick'em. Sign up with promo code NBA SGPN to claim your special pick and first deposit bonus offer up to $250 in bonus cash. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Make sure that promo code NBA SGPN. And we're also brought to you by the Mega Memorial Merch Sale. 15% off of everything in the SGPN merch store with promo code SGPN May. Welcome, everyone, to the NBA Gambling Podcast, part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. It is Saturday, May the 25th, currently 11:30 on the East Coast. Here to get into game 3 for both conference finals happening this weekend. Saturday night, we've got the Indiana Pacers looking to get on the board in this series as they are trailing 2-0 as the series shifts back to Indiana. And then we'll also go through game 3 of the Western Conference finals between the Dallas Mavericks and Minnesota. We'll recap that game when we do get to game 3 betting picks. But yeah, that's the plan for the show here today. Hopefully, we'll keep it quick and easy. But joining me here to help me break everything down on the hardwood in the NBA playoffs for the conference finals, got my guy here with me. It's Lonte Smith. Lonte, what's going on, brother? How you doing?
Pretty good, man. Good to be here with you. Yeah, interesting night of basketball. So looking forward to breaking down the card with you. Yeah, hopefully we can get some winners.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a great night of, I should say, great conference semifinals. Conference finals, I should say, thus far. In particular, Dallas and Minnesota. That's been a lot of fun to watch. Boston and Indiana. I know there's some injury news that we'll get to here in a second. But yeah, I think the conference finals, at least from a competitive standpoint, from what we've seen, has lived up to the hype thus far. I know Indiana did get punched in the mouth in game 2 by Boston, but I think that a lot of people were expecting that response from Boston in game 2 here. So let's just get into it here, man. We'll go over to the game here on Saturday night, game 3 between the Boston Celtics and the Indiana Pacers. Total right now is sitting at 222.5, and the Celtics are a 7-point favorite in this game here, Lonte. And just taking a look at the injury report, we did see in game 2 that Tyrese Haliburton did leave the game was classified now as a hamstring injury. He is listed as questionable. Officially on the injury report says left hamstring soreness. So those hamstrings can be really, really tricky for these players. Also this morning, Drew Holiday for the Boston Celtics popped up on the injury report with an illness. He is now officially listed as questionable. And Luke Cornett, who did injure his wrist, is doubtful here tonight for the Boston Celtics with a left wrist sprain. Indiana thus far in the postseason at home, Lonte, are a perfect 6-0. And I also want to say they are 6-0 against the spread there as well in the playoffs at home here. But they may be, and I'm guessing that Hallie does not play here tonight, but I think that even if he is effective or if he does end up playing, I'm not sure how effective he is going to be. So let me correct myself. They are 6-0 straight up, Indiana at home, and 4-2 against the spread. They also are 4-2 to the over in their home games thus far this season. But if you want to start with the injury news, and then we can, break down game 3 where the Celtics are a 7-point favorite here, Lonte.
Yeah, I mean, it's just all predicated on, what side you want to be on is all predicated on if Hallie's playing or not. I mean, I don't think the tempo or the game plan will change if he's out because, they have one of the better backup point guards in the NBA in TJ, but he'll be in, uncharted territory because he'll be starting and playing, probably north of 25 minutes. And that's something that he hasn't done at this level. So it'll be interesting to see how he kind of, orchestrates that if Hallie doesn't play. But I think you hit it on the head. Like, even if he does play, I mean, we saw what happened to OG. We saw even Porzingis, I think he had some discomfort early in the game on a jump shot, and he kind of was trying to pedal through it, but he really couldn't. So, I mean, those hamstring injuries aren't good, and it doesn't help that it was the same hamstring that he injured earlier in the season.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that's all predicated on which side you want to be on. If you want to be on the, the Indy side, you might want to wait until he's ruled out, and then you might get a better number. Or I mean, do you think it's kind of priced in at 7 from like that he's not going to play, or because it's hard for me to figure out. Like, so I'm thinking they were laying this same
They were
number.
like 9 in their 2 home games. So if we take away home court, which would be 2, it'd be 7 on a neutral. And then Indiana would maybe get another point and a half.
Yeah, so I'm thinking it should be like 5.5 Boston.
Yeah. So I think it is priced in.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean that's interesting because I think they were laying what 9.5 on the road in Miami without Jimmy, right?
I believe that is correct. Yeah, 9.5.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I mean, obviously it's not apples to apples because Indiana's home court is a lot better than Miami's, and I think that Miami constructed is better than than Miami without Jimmy. So yeah, I mean it's hard to handicap here, man. To be honest with you, I kind of like the Boston side either way. They've been thriving in game 3s. I know they're in like this uncharted territory where they actually won a game 2, but they've won game 3s on average of 16.5 points. And obviously both of those were on the road. So I mean, I'm interested to see how Indy comes out. I expect them to come out like on fire. So I like them in the first quarter, regardless of if Hallie's in or not. But I think they come out. They've been doing pretty good in the first quarter, all playoffs, specifically in this series. They've been doing well. I think they're like -1 in this series, but that's on the road. At home with that crowd behind them, I think they'll be fired up to go. So I like Indy in the first quarter. That's the only definitive thing that I have. I'm kind of waiting to see if Hallie is ruled in, if kind of adjust a little bit and we get a better number on Boston. But that's the side I'm leaning towards is Boston. I can't do anything with Indiana not knowing, what they're going to be like without Hallie in this high pressure situation.
Yeah, I think for the Celtics, you take a look at what they've been able to do on the road in the playoffs here. 4-0 straight up, 3-1 against the spread, 3-1 against the under, and they've held all 4 of those opponents to under 103 points. Now, obviously with Miami, we talked about no Jimmy Butler. For the Cavs, they didn't have Jared Allen, but they also did have Donovan Mitchell for the last 2 games of that series as well. So I think that obviously this is a different animal, and you mentioned, right, that this Pacers home court is a little bit different than those other 2 teams. And I think that when you talk about this Pacers team, especially at home, I think, again, we'll find out everything that we need to know in that first quarter for Indiana. And I mean, look at their home record during the regular season, 32-15 straight up. I believe that 32-15 includes the playoffs as well. 26-19-2 against the spread at home, 29-18 towards the over. That's 61.7%. So if you put a gun to my head right now, I would probably say that he doesn't end up playing. Does Tyrese Haliburton? Because again, it's a hamstring, man, and we've seen it. I mean, throughout not only the playoffs this year, but also previous years where hamstrings are really, really tricky for these players. So I think you're right that it's either Pacers early, and then I think Boston at a point just imposes their will on this team because, again, they are still just so deep. Well, they have so many options. Jaylen Brown has been incredible in the first 2 games. Jason Tatum found a little bit of his form in that fourth quarter where he got off to a rough start in the first half. Derek White has been knocking down shots for them as well. We'll see if Jrue Holiday does end up playing. I know he's dealing with the illness, but I mean, it's a playoffs. I do expect him to be out there, but how effective is he going to be might be the real question for this team. So Boston, yeah, I'll look at Indy that first quarter. If you want to get in and get out with your money, I still do think Boston comes out here and takes care of business here. Full game. You may be able to get a better number on Boston if we do think that the Pacers come out and play well early in this game. So maybe you wait for a live number. I think that might be a good angle as well for this game. Total right now, Lonte, 222.5. Does anything change here? Or are you still you think points are going to be put up?
Nah, man, I think it's still too low. I thought it's been too low the first 2 games. I mean, we saw, obviously it died a little bit in that first game, but it still would have went over without overtime. Just barely, but it still would have went over. I don't think anything changes. I mean, I know Hallie is averaging, I think he's good for like 17. I think that's what his prop has been at, between 17 and 19 this playoffs. But again, they're so deep when you factor in McConnell getting more minutes, Shepherd maybe getting more minutes, and even like to a lesser extent, I don't know which one of those guys between Isaiah Jackson, Jalen Smith, they might even throw McDermott in there as well. So I think the depth is there to kind of make up for Hallie's absence. Now, obviously, they won't be as impactful as he is, but just from a pace and scoring standpoint, I think they can still get up. The game plan is not going to change. That's the main thing that we're looking at. Is usually when teams lose their star player, that it's the offense is kind of built around them. I think the offense is just built the way it is, no matter who's in. So I think Carlisle does a good job with that. So I expect the pace to be the same. Without Hallie, I know Celtics have been kind of hunting him in the pick and roll. So they're kind of going to want to find, somebody else. And I'm assuming that person will be Miles Turner to kind of pull him up from the basket so they can get those driving lanes for Brown, Tatum, and even Drew. But they'll be shorter in the front court. So I'm expecting a lot of post-ups from Jalen and Jason. And I know they haven't done it. Missoula hasn't done it as often, but, putting Brissett in there. I mean, he was like plus 17, plus 16 in 11 minutes. So I think he has the ability to kind of play bigger than what he is. That is his former team. So, he's kind of got, that little bit of added motivation there. So, yeah, man, I expect the same thing that we've been seeing. I expect both teams to score. Indiana's got the crowd behind them. I think Boston will kind of wear them down, like you mentioned, and we'll get both teams in the low to high, 110s, 115-ish.
Yeah, I think you're right that obviously we know the game plan as far as pace is not going to change for this Pacers team. And I feel like they play even faster when TJ McConnell's in there for the Indiana Pacers. And I think that he's going to be key, obviously, in this game for this Pacers team if Hallie's not able to go. But also the other fact, I think Andrew Nimhard has to step up as well. Like you mentioned, the guys coming off the bench. Maybe you see some Doug McDermott non-garbage minutes for the Indiana Pacers, but I think Shepherd has to step up as well here for this Indiana Pacers team. So I'm still sticking with the over, man. I think that I know as great as the defense has been for the Celtics, especially on the road, this is a different team that you're going up against, and the pace is I think that's just going to continue here because that's the brand of Indiana basketball. That's something that we've talked about a lot, not only during the regular season, but obviously here in the playoffs as well. So over 222.5, if you want to take a look at team total over for the Indiana Pacers as well. I just think that this is the all-in effort here. It has to be because you go down 3-0. This series is pretty much wrapped up. I mean, people are saying that it's already wrapped up maybe right now, but I mean, this is the game that if you're the Pacers that you really want to get here, to extend the series, I should say here. All right, Lonte, before we do get into the player props here for the game 3 between the Pacers and the Celtics, let me tell everyone about our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. The NBA playoffs are officially here, and so are the conference finals. And our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy, wants to make it a lot more interesting. Underdog is the easiest place to play fantasy sports. Playing their pick'em game is as simple as selecting higher or lower on their player stats like points, rebounds, assists, and so much more. Make entries of all basketball or mix and match across your other favorite sports. You can win up to 100 times your money, and it's a ton of fun. Underdog is available in 30-plus states, including California, Texas, and even Canada. New customers get a pick'em special in the lobby when they do sign up. Underdog will also be running a ton of different promos, bonus cash airdrops, specials, giveaways, and more throughout the NBA playoffs. So make sure to follow at Underdog Picks on Twitter to keep an eye out. Underdog is available in 30-plus states, like I mentioned, including California, Texas, and Canada. They also just launched Champions, their player versus player format in Florida. So sign up with promo code NBA SGPN to claim your special pick and a first-time deposit offer up to $250 in bonus cash. That's UnderdogFantasy.com. Make sure you guys use that promo code NBA SGPN. All right, Lonte, let's get into the player props here, man, for game 3 of the Eastern Conference Finals. Where do you want to start here, man? What do you got? What are you looking at?
Well, I only bet one so far. I'm kind of waiting on, the news, especially with Drew popping up, because all that stuff will be altered if he is indeed out. And I think if it's any time for him to like be out, I think it would be this game, obviously with the injury status of Hallie. But the only one that I bet so far, Miles Turner over 16.5 points. He's over in 4 of his 6 home games in the playoffs. In the games that he hasn't went over, he's been in foul trouble like he was last game. He had 8 points, only 7 field goal attempts. So I think the foul trouble kind of threw him off. We saw it affect him a lot on the defensive end. He was kind of letting the driving lane open up, and he wasn't contesting because he was scared to get that third foul early in the first half. So I think that kind of limited his aggressiveness. If Hallie's injured, or if he's compromised, or even if he's out, I think more attempts will be there for Miles Turner, who's had big games at home. I think he had back-to-back 29-point games at home in the first round. So he's capable of scoring, and I like him in this matchup in a pick and pop game. Even if he's rolled to the basket, we've seen him throw down a couple of dunks. So I like Miles Turner over 16.5 points. I'm looking at Derek White on the Boston side as well. Kind of shook off the rust in that second half of the game. I think he scored like 14 or 15 in that second half. So he kind of got going. I expect them to be a little bit more, attention to Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum more than what they usually do if they're outmanned. So there'll be a lot more doubling. So I'm assuming he'll get a lot more open shots and be able to get downhill. And some of the shots he was missing in game one, I mean, they were open. He just was missing them. So I like Derek White. I think his prop is over 15.5. If you want to ladder him up on the threes, I think 5+ threes is a really good bet as well. I'll get the number while you give your handicap, but I do like Derek White. 15.5 is his points, and Miles Turner 16.5 for his points. And I'll get that 5+ threes number after you give your handicap.
Yeah, I like Derek White. Whether you want to go on his threes, if you want to go points and assists over for Derek White, I think that he's been absolutely fantastic, especially in the first 2 games. I know he did cool off in the conference semifinals after the first 2 games. But I think there's an opportunity that, again, like I mentioned, if Drew Holiday does or does not end up playing, it almost seems like a free roll because, dealing with an illness that obviously affects your body a lot, right? And I think that for Derek White, I think that he's tailor-made for this offense, that he can knock down the 3-point shot. He can get the assists for you. He can score the basketball as well. So I think I saw his assist at 5.5, if I'm not mistaken, yep, for Derek White. So I couldn't talk you off of that if you like that. Obviously, the bigger conversation will be if Hallie's able to go in this game or not. A pivot to TJ McConnell on his assist, and I think that may be the look here for this game for TJ McConnell. 5.5 is a number right now. If he does get ruled out, obviously that number is going to go up for TJ McConnell. But I think at this point, it may just be a little bit of a free roll. That number probably does get adjusted to maybe 6.5 if Hallie does get ruled out. So his PRA is at 19.5. I feel like that may be a little bit rich for McConnell. Can he get there? Absolutely. There's no question about it. But I think that this might be the game where we do see TJ McConnell get into the range of 30+ minutes for this Indiana Pacers team if Hallie's not able to go. And I think that even if Hallie does go in this game here, Lonte, I still do expect the minutes to be there for TJ McConnell. He only played 17 minutes in the last game. That did turn into a blowout. But prior to that, in game 1, he did play 25. So at minimum, we'll probably see them out there if it doesn't turn into another blowout for about 25 minutes. But again, if Hallie does not play, you'll see the minutes increase here for TJ McConnell in this game. So that's what I'm looking at here as well. Love your Miles Turner angle. I mean, you nailed it that if he's out of foul trouble, he's a guy that's been able to knock down a 3-point shot. Also, he can rebound the basketball, get you some blocks there as well. And we've seen him. He's doing a great job of cutting to the rim and getting those passes from the guards and be able to throw those huge dunks as well. So it's going to take a team effort here for the Indiana Pacers here tonight. I think the other conversation here, Lonte, as well. Pascal Siakam has been absolutely fantastic in the first 2 games scoring the basketball. His points probably still, I believe, also at 21.5 for Siakam. I know the minutes are going to be there, or sorry, it's up to 22.5 now, but we know the minutes are going to be there for him. Mm-hmm. The shot volume, number 2, is going to be there for him as well. I would love to see him get to the free throw line a little bit more. But he's just
if he can make him there.
Yeah, that's true too. I think the other part of it also, Lonte, is that he's just been absolutely killing the Celtics, like with that mid-range or even inside the paint. And he's been very, very efficient as well. He's shooting 56% from the floor over the last 5 games for this for this Pacers team. But he was really good in game 2, 13 of 17 from the floor. for the Indiana Pacers. So, yeah, I mean, we're looking at a lot of overs, but rightfully so, right? We've seen a lot of points being put up in the first 2 games here for this series. So I think that the overs is definitely the look here. So those are the ones I was looking at. You have anything else that you're looking at?
Nah, Derek White 4-1, 5+ threes. I'm gonna be on that. I know, and I'll be on Siakam. I'm kind of wait. The only thing I'm like for sure about is Miles Turner. I think his number is pretty much set in stone. That's usually what it has been. So I'm kind of waiting on Siakam to, if Hallie plays, maybe he ticks down a little bit from 22 to maybe 21 and a half, 21. So I'm waiting there. If he doesn't, I'll probably end up on his points, rebounds, and assists.
Okay.
Because I think he'll be able to do more. He's more than capable of orchestrating the offense and pushing the ball. I mean, they don't have a specific, like, anybody can take the ball and just push it up the floor. So they're not really looking for Hallie to create the offense. So yeah, I'll be looking at Siakam, but outside of that, man, I like your TJ McConnell. I'll probably just be on TJ McConnell's points and assists. I'll just take out the rebounds because he has been like dishing the ball even with Hallie in the lineup. So I think that's I think that's a given. So I don't think his pace or style of play will change at all. Just it'll increase the volume that he has, like you mentioned.
Yep. All right. You got anything else for this
No, that's it.
game? All
That's
right.
it.
All right. Before we get over to game 3 of the Western Conference Finals between the Mavericks and the Minnesota Timberwolves, let me tell everyone about the newest sponsor on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. That is going to be Rhythm. If you're betting on NBA player props, then you need to download Rhythm. Rhythm gives you a menu of the best player props for every single NBA playoff game, making it easy to go through and find the best props to put your money on in seconds. Rhythm predictions are backed by over 3 years of data and a team of data scientists and quants that focus on fine-tuning our algorithms to give you the best shot at winning. Rhythm pairs its predictions with player prop graphs to help you feel even more confident in your picks, which you can make wherever you normally place your bets or DFS picks as well. From superstars to bench players, Rhythm finds the best player props, all backed by AI data without you needing to endlessly scroll through a sportsbook. Rhythm also allows you to create your own custom NBA models so you can get AI-backed money line, spread, and total picks for every single playoff game. Start a free 7-day trial and start winning your NBA player props with Rhythm, available wherever you do get your apps. All right, Lonte, let's get into it here. The Western Conference Finals game 3 between the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Dallas Mavericks. We can recap what we saw last night in game 2. Luka Doncic doing Luka Doncic things, putting Rudy Gobert on skates and just putting a dagger in the heart of the Minnesota Timberwolves to take a commanding 2-0 lead as they head back to Dallas for games 3 and 4. Again, another game here, Lonte. It was a tale of two halves, and especially, and I think that's really been the theme for this series. For these two teams, we saw that the Minnesota Timberwolves were up 58-40 in that second quarter. The Dallas Mavericks made a little bit of a run to make the lead a little bit more manageable going into the half, or the deficit a little bit more manageable, and then they came out in the third quarter, outscored the Timberwolves 31-26. They also outscored them in the fourth quarter 30-22. But I mean, if it wasn't for Naz Reid last night here, Lonte, for the Minnesota Timberwolves, this could have been an absolute blowout for the Dallas Mavericks. And we can talk about how bad Anthony Edwards has been. We can talk about how bad Karl-Anthony Towns has been. But it's also telling for me, Lonte, that we saw, and I think you got to give credit to the Minnesota Timberwolves coaching staff, that they benched Karl-Anthony Towns because of how bad he was and how great Naz Reid was playing last night for this Minnesota Timberwolves team. Unfortunately, for the Wolves, it just didn't pan out where Naz Reid did have the opportunity to hit that game-winning shot. Would have been really poetic if he hadn't been able to knock that down, especially with the game that he was having. But what were your takeaways from the game last night between the Mavericks and the Wolves?
Yeah, but first of all, it was a great game, and I think you
Oh,
hit
yeah.
on it. Which are in the first part of your breakdown was that second quarter, the way it ended kind of gave they kind of gave the Mavs the ability to be like, okay, now we can kind of come out a little bit prior. Because going down, like going into the half down 18 and going in down, what they were down 11, 12?
They were down, I want to say, let's see here, 6-6. They were down 12.
Yeah, so 18 and 12 is a big difference. Although it's only 2 possessions, that's a big difference as far as Bond said. Because they could have, if they were down 18, they could have came out, gave that first 3 to 4 minute push, and if it remained the same, they kind of could have got like a day's go. And it looked like they were going through the motions early on, and I thought Minnesota was going to end up blowing them out. But like I said, that second part of the second quarter, I think that was huge going forward. Gave them confidence, and man, I just that was just a great showing. Great coaching by Kidd. He was able to kind of get those guys in. Hardy gave him a big lift. That's not being talked about enough off the bench. I think he was great. Now he was getting his shots up. I think 7 shots in 6 minutes. So he was getting it up there, but he made some big plays. I mean, Lively, of course. Gafford was big on the defensive end, and I think Kidd is doing a great job with the minutes of Gafford and Lively. Like he's getting them in there early. Like if you notice, like he's getting Lively off the bench with like 4 minutes into the game. Like, so he's giving those guys 4 or 5 minute stretches to go extremely hard as they can, rebound, defend, and he's getting them out. So they're a lot fresher when it comes to the end of the game, and he's able to rotate in and out. I thought the offense, the defense for both sides, like as far as substitution patterns, I thought that was real good at the end of that game. But yeah, man, it all boils down to, I mean, you can flip it either way. If you're a Minnesota fan and you want to look on the bright side of things, you can say, well, Ant and Cat haven't played nearly to their potential, and we could have been up 2-0. Like they were down. I mean, they were up 2. Anthony Edwards turns over the ball. They get the overturn with McDaniels. The kid challenge was a really good challenge by him. And they win that game because it was like 17 or 18 seconds left. They give up the 3 to Kyrie after Kyrie missed the free throw. And then in the first game, obviously, I think they just came down to the lack of execution. So if you want to look, glass half full in Minnesota, I don't think the series is over at all because Minnesota's shown the ability to win on the road. I mean, they're 5-1 on the road. And they went into Denver, which is one of the tougher places to win, and they won 3 games there. So and a game 7. So by any means, I don't think the series is over. I think Minnesota's going to tweak some things. And if you're a Dallas, you could say, well, our guys didn't play a full competitive game as well. I mean, Kyrie only had 5 points going into the second half, and Luka was pretty much non-existent into that fourth quarter. So, on both sides, I think you can say glass half full on each side. But to me, I think that the main thing is Minnesota's got to be able to withstand some of those minutes that Ant is off the floor, and Cat has to be better because they played a better game when Cat was on the bench for obvious reasons. But they got to be able to take Gobert off the floor as well, because when they went Nas at the 5, I thought that was their best, most effective lineup. I think they went Nas, McDaniels, and Conley, and I forgot Kyle Anderson.
Yep.
That length right there. I mean, and you got the shot making of Conley. Anderson is in the middle playmaking. So yeah, I think that was their most effective lineup, and that shouldn't be the case when you're paying all that money to those, those Twin Towers. So I think they got to kind of find a fine line in between what they want to do as far as game plan wise. And I mean, we can sit here and say Ant has to be better, but that's just obvious. I mean, I think he'll be better, and he's saying all the right things. He was obviously gassed, and I think another thing that he has to do is bro, you got to guard somebody else. You can't just run around with Kyrie, and then when he's not guarding Kyrie, he's guarding Luka. You just can't do that for the amount of minutes that you're playing with the onus that you have on the offensive end. It's I know you wanted Kyrie and you want everybody to showcase your two-way ability, but at the end of the day, bro, you got to sit in the corner and guard somebody and have that offense, because it was reports that he was getting oxygen, and then he said he wasn't. So I mean, he did look gassed in game 1. It looked a little better in game 2, but yeah, man. I mean, I think it's going to be a great series. I think Minnesota will come in and win one of these games, and they'll get another one in Minnesota, and we'll be back here for game 6 with Dallas a chance to close it out.
I think it also just comes down to the fact that Dallas has 2 guys that can close a game, and the Minnesota Timberwolves have Anthony Edwards, but they don't have that second guy. And when we came into the series and when we previewed it, I said whichever player between Kyrie Irving and Karl Anthony Towns has a better series, that team is gonna win this series. And for at least through the first 2 games, it's been Kyrie Irving that's been the better basketball player and been able to contribute alongside Luka. The role players, I think, for both sides, I gave the advantage to the Dallas Mavericks, especially in that front court, because I'm not a fan of Rudy Gobert and Cat and how soft they are. I mean, the amount of layups that those two guys have missed at point blank range has been absolutely astounding to me. And you take a look at what you mentioned, right? Derek Lively has it goes back to what that series clinching game in the first round against the Oklahoma City Thunder, where he was absolutely fantastic in that late, like the final 4 minutes. And he's carried that over into this series against the Minnesota Timberwolves. So it really that simple fact for me that they have Luka, they have Kyrie on that side, and Anthony Edwards over the last 3 games has not been very good. And I think
17
that's
and
just
57.
yeah, and I mean, you just kind of look right. Look, last night he was 5 40 minutes, 5 of 17 from the floor, 9 of his 21 points came from the free throw line. Let's go back to game one. Was it 6 of 20? Was Anthony Edwards from the floor? Sorry, 6 of 16 in game one, 19 points in that game. Let's go back to game 7. Yes, they did win the game, but 6 of 24 from the floor, 2 of 10 from 3-point line. So over the last 3 games, he's combined to go 17 of 33 and West
57 it should be.
57. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's not going to get it done. And I understand, look, these first two games in this Western Conference Finals have been determined by had 3 points or less. And those couple shots that if you could have made and been a little bit more efficient, could have been the difference where this is either split or either Minnesota could be up 2 games to nothing right now. But give a lot of credit to the Dallas Mavericks. Luka, again, doing his thing. Kyrie Irving doing his thing, and they get into contributions. But also, it just really comes down to me right now that Luka and Kyrie are those closers, and Minnesota really doesn't have that, and really has to step up. Do I believe he will respond? Absolutely. I do believe that he's just in a bad slump right now. And so you got to also give a little bit of credit to the defense for the Dallas Mavericks. But I think that's really been the difference right now for this team, because the Mavericks have 2 legitimate bona fide scorers. Minnesota has 1, and he hasn't been very good. And then you're kind of guessing on who's going to be that second guy. It's supposed to be Karl Anthony Towns, but it's been Naz Reid in game 2. Game 1, it was more of a collective effort, but it just didn't get there. So again, it's going to be a fun series. I don't think this is over. I do expect, and we saw it in the conference semifinals, right, against Denver, where they lost 3 straight games and they won the final 2 to advance here to the conference finals here. So I think they'll make the adjustments here. I think this will definitely be a series here going into game 3 in Dallas on Sunday here, Lonte. So let's get into that game here for this game 3 between the Mavericks and the Timberwolves. Currently, as it stands right now, the Minnesota Timberwolves are catching 3 points in this game 3. Total is, do you see a total for this game here, Lonte?
I see. Hold on.
I want to say it was like 208, if I'm not mistaken.
Let's see.
Let me double check here.
208.5.
208.5. All right. So we'll roll with that here. So, all right, Dallas Mavericks laying 3 points at home in game 3 with a total of 208.5. Does Dallas take a commanding 3-0 lead, or do you think Minnesota makes adjustments to make this a series again?
No, I think Minnesota and Minnesota doesn't really have. I mean, I know they have to do some adjustments, but it's not they got to make anything drastic. I mean, they were controlling both of these games, like 80% of the. I would say even 85% of the games. In both of those, they were controlling. So I don't think they have to do anything drastic. I mean, if your best players have to be your best players. And again, I think one thing that people are kind of like not talking about as well is the bench for Dallas is coming in, and although they're not scoring like, guys are not scoring like 10 and 12 points, but they're coming in and they're making impacts. We saw Josh Green hit a 3. We saw Tim Hardaway play defense. Although he didn't score, he was really good defensively, kind of giving Derrick Jones Jr. like some breathers on Ant and kind of getting downhill and making some plays. We saw Jaden Hardy. Obviously, Lively is what he is, and even Exum came in and he wasn't, impactful, but he was able to kind of give those guys a break off of doing what they do. So he's not running around. So PJ's not running around and Derrick Jones Jr. is not running around. I think Derrick Jones Jr. will play better at home,
Yeah.
but like Minnesota's got to get more from their bench coming into the series. Naz Reid has scored like 65% of the bench points for Minnesota in the whole playoffs. So they're not getting a ton. I think you need to see more Kyle Anderson. You got to let him play make and be in the middle of that defense. He's good with the floater. He's good with spraying out to shooters. And I think you should like play through him in that mid post area and put the shooters on the side. You want to put Cat or Cat on one side and Conley on the other side. I mean, Conley's capable of knocking down a three as well. And I think they will be able to do that here. I think Dallas is going to be Dallas, and I think they're going to be hyped up for the game. But Minnesota performs well on the road, nothing they haven't seen before. So I trust them to come in. I trust Ant to make the proper adjustments and be better. And I think Cat will be better as well. So I like Minnesota here. I like them to win the game and go down 2-1.
Yeah, this number just moved to 3.5 on DraftKings right now, so in favor of Dallas. But again, like we mentioned, both of these two games have been determined by 3 points or less, and I think that's what's going to happen again. I feel like this is going to be a series where it's going to come down to the final couple minutes in every single one of these games until we find out which team is going to be advancing to the NBA Finals. So, yeah, I like Minnesota in this spot. I think that Anthony Edwards does respond here, and it's about them maintaining leads and being able to hold off the runs that Dallas has made, especially in the first two games. And again, it's going to be a taller task because now you're on the road doing this. But I mean, we've seen it, right? I think it kind of goes back to the series against the Denver Nuggets that they won the first two games and then they lost the next three, but they were able to make those adjustments. And I think that they'll be able to figure out how to slow down. I think Luka is still going to get his. It's just to them about the fact that they're not having those scoring droughts. And I think that's what's really been the difference. But you need, like I mentioned, Karl Anthony Towns has to step up. I think Anthony Edwards does turn it around. Give a lot of credit to Naz Reid. You mentioned Kyle Anderson as well. He's been really good as well for this team. But again, I think this team is going to go as Karl Anthony Towns goes. And that may be just asking a lot for this Minnesota Timberwolves team. So, yeah, you go ahead.
Yeah, I think they got to be, you got to play less Gobert. To me, you got to kind of pick his spots of when he's in, and you might even want to go to a zone. We saw OKC go to a zone in that series, and it was effective. Dallas kind of turned the ball over because they're not used to. I mean, they want to play in the half court, but the zone wise, they want to do high pick and rolls. If you look at like when Luka or Kyrie's coming across half court, they're setting that screen so high that they're just going straight downhill, and Rudy has no choice. He's either going to come up or he has to, be in the drop. And Luka's floater, he's got the little push step back that he's shooting. But yeah, I mean, they kind of you got to make up your mind. You're either going to blitz it or you're going to drop, and you can't you got to give him a steady dose of both. But you have to be consistent when what you're doing. You got to pick up because he's blitzing on certain things, but like when Gafford and Lively are in the game, the lob is coming, so you got to rotate over to kind of take that lob away. We saw Luka do it in that game one, which broke up a lob, and I think you got to be the backside has to be a little bit more active and not give up those lobs. Now, some of those were just great passes, but yeah, I think that they have to pick their spots with Gobert. Obviously, he's going to anchor the rim, but they're not getting to the rim. They're pulling up from 13 to 15 feet. So you got to kind of pick your poison with him. I'm not saying bench him or anything, but you got to be selective because they're picking him apart on that screen and roll. So I think a little bit of zone employed would kind of help out in that sense.
Yeah, I'm with you. It will be. It's the fact that yes, that Rudy Gobert around the rim is a great defender, but I think he doesn't have that versatility, and we saw that on display last night when he had to go up against Luka on that final possession. Because I think for a defensive player of the year type of players, you have to be able to guard 1 through 4, and I just don't think that Rudy Gobert is capable of doing that. He's more of a rim protector than anything. And yes, he's going to get the block shots. He'll make things difficult, but I mean, Luka has been putting him on skates in the first two games here. So we'll see what adjustments they do make. Total is sitting at 208.5 in this game here. Lonte, what are your thoughts on the total in this game?
Man, Munaf, I'm 0-2 betting the total, thinking that we get a low scoring, slow paced game. Bro, the score was it was like 9-9 with like 6 minutes left. And it
Yeah,
still goes over. Like,
yeah.
so yeah, I'm out on the total, man. I have no idea. I mean, hopefully you can sway me. I've even done some first half unders, just thinking that we get a slow, grinded out type of game. But I think the free throws are what keep, because I think they shot a combined what, like 55 free throws last night, if I'm not mistaken,
Let
close to
me
50.
see here.
So I think that's
Last night we had the Mavericks go 15 of 22 and Minnesota 26 of 32. So yeah, 54, the
Yeah,
exact
so I
number.
think that's kind of the story, right? The guys getting in the bonus early. I think Minnesota was actually no, Dallas was in the bonus with like 5 minutes to go in one of those
Yeah.
quarters because the foul. So yeah, man, I'm out on the total. I have no idea, man. But I'll like refer to you. I'll defer to you on that because I just haven't been good with the totals. I would think that we see it under. If we like, I think if you like Minnesota, you gotta like the under, thinking that it's kind of a slower pace game.
Yeah.
And if you like Dallas, you kind of want to go over, thinking they kind of control the pace a little bit because they both play at similar paces, but Dallas is a little bit faster on offense than what Minnesota is.
Yeah, I think that you may be able to even get a better live number
Yeah.
if you're looking at this game, because the first half has been a little bit more higher scoring than the second half, and they had 106 points in game two here. I want to say the first half was also a little bit higher scoring as well in game one. So I lean towards the under. But again, both these teams they don't play at a very fast pace either. Like it's complete opposite of Boston and Indiana, but these first two games have still gotten over the total. So yeah, I would lean towards the under in this game here. I don't love it, but again, those free throws can really be the difference for the total in a lot of these games here. Player props. What are you looking at here, Lonte?
I mean, I think the most popular player prop, if I had to make a bet on the most popular player prop, it'll be Ant over his points. I'm not going there though. I'm going to just stay away from that. I thought he was going to bounce back in game two, and he didn't, so he kind of burned me there. I'm going to go with PJ Washington over 12.5 points. If you want to factor in, I'm betting both 12.5 points. I think he's at like 18.5 points and rebounds. He hasn't shot the ball well. Wide open looks, man. He's 2 of
Yeah.
12 from deep in the series, but he's getting the looks that he wants. They're using him as a screener, and he's getting wide open looks at the top of the key in the corners. I think Van Gundy has like been spot on. Like he's better shooting in the corners than he is anywhere else. But I mean, again, wide open shots. He's playing better at home. He's coming off of like a single digit scoring game at home, but he did hit the big free throws at the end to win it. So I think he'll have a good game here, especially on the boards. And if you think if you're thinking like me and we see a little bit less Rudy, his minutes go down from let's say at least 7 or 8 minutes, and they play him kind of in spurts. I think PJ can kind of take advantage on the glass as well. But I think he'll knock down some threes. He's another one of those guys that I think if you want to ladder him up to 3, 4, 5 threes, I think that's a good bet as well. He's going to get the looks, just hasn't been able to knock them down. So I'm always encouraged by guys who are getting like clean looks and just not knocking them down. He's been good throughout the postseason. So I like PJ Washington any way you can get him. 12.5 points. That's at plus money, by the way. 18.5 points and rebounds. And if you want to ladder his threes up all the way up to 5, I like that as well. I'll get the numbers on that while you do that. While you do your
Yeah,
handicap.
I think PJ Washington. You talked about it. Right? He has to knock down those corner shots. Is where he's most effective. Luka assist. I was going to be intrigued by that. They're going to try to keep on making those adjustments. Maybe double, triple teaming him, whatever the case might be. But I know the assists are going to continue being there for a guy like Luka. Whether it's lob threats to Derek Lively, Daniel Gafford, or finding some of these shooters, whether it is getting it to Kyrie, the assists I think are going to continue being there for him. Cat on the road for whatever reason has been really good.
Better, yeah, like 10 points better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, I think that this is a game where he has to respond for this Minnesota Timberwolves team. That number is at 19.5. I think he's had 20 points in all of the road games. this postseason. Let's see, games 1, he had 20, 27 in game 2, 23 in game 5, 23 in game 7 as well against Denver. So those are the ones that I am looking at for him. Whatever reason, I don't see a note that came across, but Hallie's props just got pulled. I'm not sure. I haven't seen a note come across yet, but we'll keep an eye on that. Yeah, Cat, Luka. I like the PJ Washington angle that you mentioned. Edwards, I think, does respond, but I think, like you mentioned, it's going to be a popular play here for the player props for him. You have anything else that you like?
Yeah, so PJ, 3+ threes, 127, 4+, 340. They don't have 5+ yet. They only have Luka, Kyrie, and Ant. So, but I'll be on PJ. I like your look with Luka's assist as well. I mean, I'm gonna look at Kyrie first. If you can find a book that has, I think FanDuel has first quarter, first half props. I'll look at Kyrie under. I mean, he's not been aggressive in the first half of games, going back to the last series. So I think that's a good look as well. But it's not like widely available, so I won't like give that one out.
All right, Lonte, let's get into our lock and dog here for game 3s here. I'll let you lead it off, man. What are you looking at?
Yeah, I'm gonna lock up a player prop, man. Miles Turner. We went over it earlier. He's 16.5 points. I don't know what the deal is with Hallie, but I like it either way. Even if he's out, I think that's even more incentive for you to go. I'm gonna ladder him up all the way up to like 20+. He's over in 4 of his 6 home games. The foul trouble has really been the reason why he hasn't been as effective in the 3 games that he hasn't performed well. I think he had 8, 6, and 5 points. Foul trouble was due to that. So I think Miles Turner has a big night, man. He's a real bad matchup, especially for Al Horford in the middle of that zone. I mean, in the middle of that coverage, the defensive coverage that the Celtics play. So I like Miles Turner over 16.5. I'll ladder it up to like 20+. So that'll be my lock. Dog wise, I'm gonna go with Minnesota, man. I think Minnesota comes out. They perform better on the road. I think they get that bad taste out of their mouth. I mean, we just went over the game, so I won't reiterate some of the points, but I think Minnesota comes out and wins the game. Let me see what the best number you can get on them is. Plus 130. See anything better
for
Minnesota?
Yeah, I see plus 125, plus 130 is the best number I see on DraftKings right now.
Yeah. So I like the plus 130, man. If you want to just go, I like them in the first half as well. So if you want to go first half full game, I think that'll be a pretty good payout as well. I think they come out and have a pretty good game from start to finish.
All right. For my lock, I think I mean, if it's not broken, I'm not going to try to fix it. I'm just going to go with the over in the Celtics and the Pacers game. I think this number,
absolutely,
it's been adjusted to 222.5 for a reason, right? I think that books are thinking that Hallie does not play. My gut tells me he doesn't play either, but the Pacers are going to still play at their pace, whether it's with McConnell in there, whether it's with Shepherd in there, whether it's Andrew Nembhard, whatever the case might be. This team has been really good at home to their overs. I mentioned it, 60+% during the regular season, 4-2 to the over in the postseason as well. I think Siakam, Miles Turner, Shepherd, Andrew Nembhard, Obi Toppin, guys coming off the bench. I think they're just going to play their brand of basketball. And Boston, I know they're offensively, they can knock down the 3-point shots. I think they're going to get theirs as well. So over 222.5 as my lock. For my dog, I think that it might just have to be some type of player prop ladder here. If there was a TJ McConnell assist ladder that I could probably get to here.
Hold on, I might can find one.
Yeah, so let's just do 8+ at plus 265. If you want to take it up to 10+ at 9-1.
Oh man, that's good. I like that as well.
I think that, yeah, even if, again, if Hallie does end up playing, I'm not how effective he is going to be, but I just do think that this is going to be the TJ McConnell game for the Indiana Pacers. So I'll ladder his assist up 8+ plus 265. 10+ is at 9-1 for TJ McConnell. Lonte, let's put together our underdog fantasy entry before we wrap it up here, man.
Yes, sir.
What are we looking at? I know you. I like Miles Turner. We can throw him in there.
Yeah, I like Miles
for
Turner.
Our underdog fantasy entry here for tonight, or at least to start for this weekend. Let me get over to pregame and let's go to NBA. All right, yeah. So Miles Turner, his number's at 16.5. We'll go higher on that. What else do you like?
I mean, you like TJ, so I like TJ as well. If you want to go like points, assists, or you want to just go strictly assists, I'm fine with either or.
All right, let's see here. Where is actually Miles Turner is at 16. That's even better for us on
Yeah,
Underdog.
even better.
TJ McConnell, his assists are at 5.5. We'll go higher on that.
Yeah.
What else?
I like PJ threes. I don't know if it's like 1.5 or I like his points overall. Also, but
so they have his 3-pointers at 2, and then the points at 11.5.
Let's go with. I'm trying to figure out what we want to do.
I feel like if he hits 3 threes, he's gonna get to his points mark.
Right, but
at worst, if he hits 2, we push on it, and it just turns into a 2.
Yeah, we trying to win
entry.
though.
I'm gonna go points.
Yeah, let's go with the points.
All right. So that'll be our entry here for this weekend. Game 3 for the conference finals. Just to recap: Miles Turner higher 16 points, TJ McConnell higher 5.5 assists, and PJ Washington higher 11.5 points for the Dallas Mavericks. That $10 entry will get you a return of $60. Again, if you don't have an account, make sure you guys go to underdogfantasy.com. Make sure you have promo code NBA SGPN and come cash with us over on underdogfantasy.com. All right, that's going to wrap it up for this edition of the NBA Gambling Podcast. Lonte, anything else we want to mention before we get out of here?
Nah, man. Good luck to everybody. Enjoy the games. That's all.
Yeah, man, should be a fun weekend of NBA playoffs. Game 3 tonight between the Celtics and the Pacers, and then we also have Game 3 between the Wolves and the Mavericks on Sunday night as well. So definitely looking forward to it. We'll be back as usual on Monday. We'll recap the weekend. We'll get into Game 4 as well. So it should be a lot of fun this weekend. Make sure to follow Lonte on Twitter. That's at XXLonteXX. You can follow me there as well at SportsNerd824. Do us a favor. If you haven't already, smash that like button for us on the stream. Leave us a comment in the comment section as well. If you haven't already left us a rating and review, definitely would appreciate it if you guys can do that for us. Appreciate everybody in the chat. Thanks for joining us. Enjoy the games this weekend. Let's break these books off and let it ride.